Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Infosec 2020. My name is Dr. Tamer Aboualy, and I'm joined with Greg Sinclair. And we would like to first thank the organizers for putting together this wonderful event. We'd like to thank you for attending, and we wish that you will have a good time in the conference, learn a great deal. And with that, we would like to go ahead and start. So today, we're going to be talking about security challenges and threats in Pakistan. So a quick introduction about myself. I am Dr. Tamer Aboualy. I am currently the IoT security global lead. Previously, I was the security practice lead in Canada and also the Middle East and Africa. My expertise are around destructive malware, various types of ransomware, as well as cryptography. And also, I specialize in IoT and OT security. I'll hand it over to Greg to introduce himself.
And of course, I'm Greg Sinclair. I'm the associate partner for the Gulf and Levant and Pakistan. And I've been in information security for over 20 years, the last 13 at IBM, specifically across 3 different continents. I lead a team of subject matter experts, architects and consultants and delivery staff who are assigned to this particular territory across all competencies. Tamer?
Thank you, Greg. One other thing we should mention is Greg and I have been working together for over 12 years, first working together in Canada and then in the Middle East and Africa. We have a wonderful agenda for you today. First off, I've personally been to Pakistan and Karachi many times. I hope to one day come again, but still very happy to present this virtually. So our agenda today is we're first going to talk about, from a global perspective, the cost of data breach from a global perspective, as well as the IBM Security X-Force Threat Intelligence Report. Then we're going to be getting specific into exploits that we've seen in Pakistan, and we're going to use examples from Shodan and Zone H. And then at the very end, most important part is Greg is going to be talking about security strategies, recommendations, and approaches to mitigating these specific issues. So first up, the IBM Security Cost of Data Breach Report for 2020. If you're interested in reading further about this report, please go to ibmsecurity.com, ibm.com/security, and you could read more about the report. So the highlights of the report. So what we've seen is that the global average for a data breach is about 3.86 million. Now that's across various industries and countries and geographies. What's interesting is that the number one or the highest cost and impact were in healthcare, energy, and financials. And from a geography perspective, the areas that had the greatest amount of records breached and cost were the USA, the Middle East, specifically like the Gulf region, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE, Qatar, as well as Canada. What's interesting to note is that in terms of the root cause, over half, 52%, was malicious intent. And the other parts related to glitches or human error. But more and more, we're seeing that the actual root cause of this can be traced to some sort of malicious intent. As far as the attack vectors, well, these seem to be the same across many, which is compromised credentials, misconfigurations in cloud environments, and vulnerability in various types of software. I've investigated many breaches over the years across many countries, and the theme continues. Compromised credentials, misconfiguration, and using vulnerabilities in software that hasn't been patched. Also, what's interesting to note is It's taking a long time to identify when a breach has occurred, and it takes time to contain it as well too. In fact, it's 280 days for the complete cycle to finish on average. But what's interesting is that organizations that are organized are able to save, on average, about $2 million to that average data breach cost. And that comes as a result of having an incident response team, an incident response plan, testing the environment, and being ready. The message here is that we'll all have breaches. We'll all have security issues. It's not if, it's when and how. However, we all need to be prepared. What we're going to do, how we're going to react. Are we monitoring the environment? Are we monitoring who has access? Are we controlling who has access? Taking the right mitigations and having the right plan is critical to ensuring that your environment has continuity. As we were going through the dark web, we noticed lots of Pakistani PII things being sold, credit card numbers from banks, loyalty cards, so on. All sorts of types of Pakistani PII from citizens being sold. Here's an example of passport scans that are being sold for US dollars. It's just one example. As you can see, this one here comes from the Silk Road, and you can see the Onion complete address, although it would be very difficult to find this specific address again. Moving to the X-Force 2020 Threat Index report. Now we've looked at breaches. Now we're going to look at specific vulnerabilities and how they were used. If you're interested in reading more about this report, you can go to ibm.com/security. Underneath the data breach section, you'll find threat intelligence. When we looked at countries, in terms of the top 20 countries that were housing command and control or C2 hosting countries, Pakistan came in the top 10. The top country that had the most command and control servers that were controlling infected machines, which are often referred to as bots, was the United States, but Pakistan did make the top 10. What's interesting to note, when we looked at victims, instead of commanders, the actual victims, Pakistan was also not in the top 10, but in the top 20. As far as victims, the top 3 victims that we recorded globally, they were the United States, India, and Indonesia. Pakistan reaching number 20 as far as victims of spam bots. So we wanted to understand more about threat and vulnerability in Pakistan. And a good indication to understand if servers are being configured correctly or if they're being patched is to take a look at defacement. This is called Zone H. This website, Zone H, it records many defacements in all sorts of countries. So what you can do is you go to the website and you search for the Pakistan domain, and you can search for the amount of defacement. What we've discovered was there were over 19,000 defacements that were recorded for the .pk domain, and over 700 were in 2020, and we're not done 2020. When you go to the site, you'll see that the defacements are organized by date, as you can see on the left, the notifier being the hacker's name or handle, the domain and country where it's hosted. There are many that are hosted in Pakistan, but as you can see, there are also many sites that are hosted in Germany and the United States and others. The website, the operating system that it's using, everything from Windows XP to Linux to Windows 2016. And the final part is if you wanted to see the actual message that was left by the hacker. Now, we're going to look at 2 examples of what these messages are. Often they're political in nature. Of course, we have no interest in the political message that's left or whatever message that's left. We're simply just showing you an example of what they look like. So we found 2 that were recorded. There are many that were recorded in 2020. These ones were sort of the top two that we found that occurred in August. The first one was from supposedly the LUSEC India organization, and they defaced the Sindh Basic Education Program, which is a charitable organization, and they left this defacement. Another example of a defacement occurred in the Commissioner Karachi website, and that occurred on July the 6th, 2020, at least when it was recorded. So moving right along to other vulnerabilities. Interesting, what we've noticed in 2019 is a 2,000% increase in attacks targeting operational technology. Now, OT is used in critical infrastructure, such as airports, such as water desalinization, such as electric grids, our city infrastructure, our food processing. It is critical, and it affects how we live our daily lives. And it's interesting to note that we've noticed a significant increase in the amount of attacks specifically at OT. We've also seen more than 150,000 vulnerabilities recorded, as well as 8.5 million records compromised. And again, the theme continues with a great deal of it due to misconfiguration. Drilling down into OT and understanding why and how it's occurred over the years, you can see from 2016 to 2019 on the chart on the right that there has been an ongoing increase. And the increase is really a result of the convergence of IT, OT, and IoT, the Internet of Things, and the number of vulnerabilities that are now taking place in those infrastructures as a result of the ongoing convergence. And of course, if you're talking about a city infrastructure or water or things that really regulate our daily lives, it becomes also more interesting and lucrative attacks for those who wish to impact how we live. So we wanted to understand, what can we see in terms of OT and IoT within Pakistan. So we used quite often what's used is Shodan or other search engines. There is a saying in God we trust. And anything we want to find in critical infrastructure or IoT, we use Shodan. It's quite easy. You can go to the critical infrastructure or the ICS portion of the website, and there you'll find tags related to devices such as Modbus, which is used often in ICS, Siemens, BACnet for building management systems, and there you can put together a query. So we did that. I put this one together last night. I wanted to understand, to see if I could see Modbus within Pakistan. And in my search results from last night, I did find Modbus. And this is just an example of one. And as you can see, we can see the geographic area of where it's located. But more importantly, the ports that are available and the vulnerabilities, as you can see here on the bottom right-hand side. CVEs that have not been addressed since 2008. So first off, these CVEs need to be addressed. These devices need to be patched. But more importantly, I shouldn't be able to access this device in this way. It's a result of incorrect architecture. It's a result of changes in the environment. And it's also a result of a lack of visibility to understand what's happening in the OT environment. So quite easy to be able to compromise that device using those vulnerabilities, but we don't even need to do that. You can take the specific fingerprint of the device, understand the model, and as we said, in God we trust, that everything else we Google, and we Google the device name and the specific type, and there we have the specific credentials. And those default credentials often allow us to have access to that device because many organizations are unaware of what's happening in the OT and IoT side of the environment, that there could be default configurations, that they could be viewable to the internet, and that maybe the architecture is not what they presume it to be. It's not just the OT devices, it's IoT devices such as cameras. This is an example of a search we did last night for real-time streaming protocol, RTSP, for cameras. And we found 16,000, over 16,000. And as you can see, they're divided into Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad, different cities. However, the top city having these cameras viewable was Lahore. And in running that report, and again, these reports are constantly being run, and people are viewing these all the time. What we found was viewable cameras in banks, in infrastructure, and very important places within Pakistan. And again, it's as a result of configuration and monitoring and understanding what's occurring in those environments. This is just an example of one picture that was there, which we chose because it didn't show people and or other important areas. So since we were showdamming, decided also to look for RDP, or the remote desktop protocol. And we found quite a few devices, over 4,000 devices that were viewable in Pakistan. So first off, RDP, you should not have that directly viewable from the internet. There are approaches to having remote access and ways of accessing devices. Direct RDP is not the way to go about doing this. And also, when we looked at these devices, because they were viewable from the internet, they also had various types of vulnerabilities that could be seen. Additionally, it's not just various types of organizations that we've seen. Windows XP, which is quite easy to exploit within about a few minutes using Metasploit or other tools. So having gone through the scary threat landscape and the examples of what we've seen from a global and a local Pakistan perspective, we want to leave you with a few things to think about in terms of mitigating the risk and addressing these challenges. First off is to really build a risk-aware environment and management system and culture for OT, IoT, and also across your cloud environments, ensuring that you have the correct security policies, procedures, and architecture to mitigate risk and understand what's there and how you're managing it, and to also ensure that your users are trained and know what to click on and what not to click on. Additionally, establishing a security intelligence program in terms of a SOC, and not just monitoring, but being able to respond to threats and address them quickly, the complete life cycle, and to look at this and integrate it across not just IT, but OT and IoT and the cloud. Wherever your risks are, wherever your assets are, you need to have visibility, and you need to be able to respond to incidents that occur. We invite you to take a look at all of these essential practices and to evaluate your environment against these essential practices. I'm going to hand it over now to Greg Sinclair to talk about our unified security approach. Over to you, Greg.
Yeah, thank you, Tamer. And first of all, I mean, it was an incredible amount of really, really almost frightening level of detail that you've gone into. And I always appreciate your ability to do that. I think that the reality is it's not about Pakistan or any particular industry. I think we're seeing this right around the world with many of our clients. I know certainly I have seen many of the similar challenges, regardless of the type of organization or the size. The fact is, modern security requires a unified approach. I mean, there's so many challenges, and the traditional approach to security simply doesn't work anymore. It doesn't scale, and it's very difficult. And I think on the next slide, I think we've kind of outlined what we believe to be the starting point, and it's not a single point in time. I mean, although I'm calling this a starting point, it is really something that needs to be done on an ongoing, continual basis. And that is to align your strategy or your plan as a cybersecurity professional with the needs of the business. And I know, it's a common point, but it's especially now more important than ever that we're completely aligned as cybersecurity professionals with the needs of the business. And whether that's driving OT and IT convergence, or whether it's a move to cloud and modernized applications, regardless of what the business is doing, we as security professionals need to be on an ongoing basis, continually aligned. And the way that we do that is through many of the same views that Tamer has outlined, which is to conduct assessments, from the ground up and from the top down. On the next slide is the way that we need to protect ourselves in an ongoing modern approach. And I think we can all agree that the data center is no longer the control point that it used to be, right? It's no longer important to look at a single, a castle and a moat type of protection mechanism. We need to think about the fact that our applications are everywhere, that our data is everywhere. You saw the flags in Tamer's presentation about websites being hosted right around the world in Germany and Pakistan and everywhere. I mean, that's just web applications. When you think about in your own environment where your data is, it's the real reason why we need to think about a new method, new ways of securing that data that we have. And whether that's through zero trust or other mechanisms for digital trust, we need to think about that new method. And then finally, we need to manage on an ongoing basis the way that we're uniting people, process, and technologies. You need to continually ask yourself, do my staff have the right training that they'll need next year? What can they learn now to help my security program in the future? And that is not a single point in time activity. We need to be looking at that on an ongoing basis. And of course, not just the people, the process, and the technologies to facilitate the more automated and methodical approach to how we scale with the needs of the business. And that's it. I want to thank you for your time today. I have certainly appreciated, as Tamer mentioned, the organizers putting this event together. I know that the other topics today that you'll walk through go into a lot of these similar topics in far more detail. And so we appreciate the opportunity to speak to you, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy yourself at Infosec 2020. Take care. Goodbye.